What's up, everybody? I'm Matt, along with my niece Avery and her mom, my sister Elena. How's everyone doing? Hope you're having a great day. Sorry we missed you last week, but we told you we'd keep you on your toes, and sometimes it's every week, sometimes it's every other week. So, Avery, how has your week been?
Good.
What have you been up to? What did you do today?
Yes, today I went to the field trip to the farm and I got to ride a horse and milk a cow and pick up a chicken, and I got to see a pig, and I got to ride on a school bus.
Nice. You got to milk a cow?
Uh-huh.
What was that like?
I don't know.
Well, she didn't actually milk the cow.
Oh.
Everyone else in her class did, but Avery didn't want her hands to get dirty, so she did not partake in that part. She did do all the other stuff though.
Oh, very cool. Did you do anything fun this weekend?
I can't remember.
I think you went to a birthday party.
Oh, wait, I went to Yanni's birthday party and it was soccer themed.
Nice. And did you have fun playing soccer?
Yeah.
All right, well, good. Well, I guess we can end the podcast now because Avery gave us a recap of her life. That's our podcast this week. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Well, good. Avery, I'm glad you're joining us. We are a family business. We are a small business, and as most of you guys know, that our parents started the gallery, and Elaine and I have kind of taken it to the next level, and now we're training Avery to be able to take over maybe next year or the following year so that we all can retire early. So Avery, no pressure, but this show's going to fall on your shoulders, all right?
You up for it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's been going on at the gallery this week, Elena?
This week has seemed a little chaotic, but in a good way. We're right in the middle of the Bora trunk show still, which has been very successful and very cool. He has a lot of really awesome pieces that he sent down, and it seems like new things are coming in all the time. So it's been a really, really good week.
And for those that have been anxiously awaiting the duck families, the rock people, the bunnies, those arrived on Monday. So we finally got them out and displayed. So we have a beautiful selection of people and ducks and frogs and bunnies and chickens and roosters and turtles. So make sure you hurry in before they buy or get sold or get purchased, because I know a lot of people we've had to call to let them know to come in and pick them up. So that's been exciting, and I know that Bora's show is going for the rest of this week.
Yeah, we have it through this weekend. So okay. Monday I'm packing it all up and sending it back to Rhode Island.
And for those that haven't seen Bora's work, it's three brothers from Rhode Island, and it's a lot of oxidized sterling, some polished and brushed sterling, some gold accents, and some really cool stones. Yeah. And I think the best part is they're all one-of-a-kind pieces. They're all hand-fabricated. Nothing's mass-produced. Nothing's recreated. So definitely try to get in before the end of this weekend and see his latest creations. They're really unique, really different styles. The rings and earrings and necklaces and bracelets, and it's work you can really dress up, but you can also wear it with jeans, and it really just kind of complements the outfit nicely.
Yeah, the rings especially. He sent a ton of rings down. So we have from sizes 5 all the way up to like 10s and 11s, and he sends a lot of really cool statement one-of-a-kind pieces. So if you're looking for a good ring, I would definitely come check it out. You'll still have a few more days once this airs to stop by the gallery and see what we have.
Avery, do you have a favorite piece of jewelry of his?
I don't know what any of his were.
I know you gotta come.
I think he likes that brushed sterling one with like an amethyst and the stone spun around in it. I thought I saw you playing with that.
It was a pretty ring. Tension setting. He has a lot of rings that he does a tension setting on. So,
but if you guys can't make it down for Bora this weekend, next week we have another a 2-day show, correct?
Yeah, with Jacob Keleher is coming. He will be at the gallery on March 19th and the 20th. I don't have the exact hours yet, but as soon as we know the exact times he'll be there, we'll get that set.
And that's Wednesday and Thursday, so a week from
Correct.
yesterday, and then a week from today. He
Yeah.
will be live and in person in the gallery.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he's been very busy at work, and he's bringing down a really unique collection. He's only going to be here for 2 days, so it's definitely, if it's something you guys are curious in, at least meeting the artist, talking with the artists, kind of just seeing how they create their or his ideas and his designs, it's definitely worth coming in. And fortunately, we and by me and we, I say me and Elena, was able to sit down with Jacob earlier today and talk to him and just kind of get a brief history. What are your takeaways from the kind of interviewing him?
Jacob is he's an awesome guy. He is a big personality. He's really fun to talk to, and I don't really want to give it away, so let's let you listen to the interview first, and then I will give you my recap at the end.
Perfect. We can listen to it together.
All right. So for today's interview, I am very excited to be with the wonderfully talented Jacob Keleher from Jacob Keleher Jewelry. So Jacob, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where do you live? What do you do? Who is Jacob?
Who is Jacob? So
Yeah.
I live in Chicago, although I feel like I am around the country somewhere more often than I am in Chicago lately. My show schedule has been a little crazy the past few years, but I've done it to myself. But anywho, I moved to Chicago 23 years ago, where I started working for Starbucks, which I thought would be my career. I was going to be a store manager for Starbucks, and I thought I would take the next logical step in my career with them, which would be to get promoted and be a district manager, maybe even go on further, be a regional director. I just loved the company and how they treated their employees, the fact that they gave health care to part-time workers and stock options. So back in the day, there was only 2,000 stores. If you can picture there only being 2,000 Starbucks in this country, now there's like over 30,000. And Chicago was the second market, which is what brought me to Chicago. So It started in Seattle. Chicago became the second market. Well, next door to the very first store that I ran, there was an American Craft Gallery. I had no exposure to that kind of artwork up to this point in my life.
Wow.
I do get a lot of art inspiration, or I should say I get my artistic inspiration, I think, a lot from my mother. She was very into arts and crafts, but more along the lines of folk art. What she was really passionate about. So that's kind of how my craft experience was growing up. And then when I walked into the craft gallery, Mindscape Adornments, which is right next to the very first store I ran, the Starbucks store that I ran, I was in awe. I was a 23-year-old kid. I'm now 46. You could do the math. I lived in Chicago for 23 years, and I was 23 when I walked in. But I was in awe. They sold jewelry, clothing, pottery, glassware. I had never seen artwork like that before. I grew up in a very small town of 30,000 people. We didn't have big art fairs that came to our town. So my exposure to that kind of work was very limited. Jim and Carol were the owners. They would come into my Starbucks for coffee every morning, and anyone who's worked retail knows you got to come in for your afternoon coffee picking up as well.
Absolutely.
So I would see them often, and we just got to talking, and we became, sort of friendly with each other. I learned their names as customers, and one day they asked me, right before the holiday season, if I would be willing to pop into their store after working my shift at Starbucks to kind of like help unpack boxes. Bill Campbell was, when they were still making Bill Campbell pottery, that was huge. They sold a ton of that stuff, and it's big, it's bulky. So someone's got to unpack it, price it, display it. So that's what I was doing for them. Then they discovered I was really good at talking with customers, and then I learned quickly. So they moved me to the front of house. So then I was selling jewelry and pottery and glass and whatnot to the general public. And this is in Evanston, Illinois. So which is a suburb of Chicago. It's also where Northwestern University is, for those who are familiar with the area. Long story short, I would always watch Jim Letourneau, who was a metalsmith and sold his jewelry at the store. And he was one of the owners, and he had his workbench, kind of like the one you see behind me, in the back room at Mindscape. And I was always peeking around the corner. What are you doing? What are you working on?
Huh.
Can I try that someday? And finally, one day he said, sure. And I had a gold ring that didn't fit, and we melted it down. I turned it into a keychain. I made a little gold disc and sawed it out. And then I put a sterling silver wire that I soldered around as the edge and a little jump ring as the loop. And I made a keychain.
Okay.
And I was hooked. I could not stop from that moment on. So Jim allowed me to use his workspace. I started apprenticing under him, helping him with production. Then I moved into making some of my own pieces. And I didn't go to design school. I didn't go to art school. I didn't have any of this education. So I'm all kind of learning on the fly. But what really worked is I came with aggressive design ideas, and Jim would talk me through them, and then I would execute them. And as I started progressing along and, getting better with soldering and sawing and stone setting, they would then start letting me sell things in their store.
Okay.
And customers were quickly buying up my work. So I just kept cranking more pieces out as much as I could. Keep in mind, I'm now working 2 jobs.
Right.
And trying to make some jewelry. And at this point, it's sort of a learning hobby, I should say. But at the same time, customers are buying it. So that was, I want to say, in 2003. And I continued to work under Jim's direction for about 5 years. Unfortunately, Mindscape didn't make it through the recession.
Okay.
And they ended up closing their doors. But Jim moved his studio space to his home and continued to let me use that space. In 2009, I was able to start building my own studio in a space from another artist's home, and I was renting a spot in their basement. That artist's name was Karen Ovington, who's now retired, but a lot of people know her for her glass beads. She was a bead worker, a glass bead maker, and also made finished pieces. So I rented a space in her basement and slowly started buying tools. I have the bench behind me is another artist who retired. I bought her bench. I bought her rolling mill. I bought a lot of different tools from her, pliers, whatnot. So it's an expensive business to be in jewelry. The materials are expensive. The tools are expensive. And so now this is turning into an expensive hobby.
Right.
So in 2009, I decided to launch my first wholesale line.
Okay.
Which was not successful.
Okay. At least you're honest. That's good.
But I tried. I even got an artist rep and everything. She would do the wholesale shows in the Merchandise Mart in Chicago. I forget what that was called. You might remember what that show was called.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember the name. But
it was a big buyer's market, and they did jewelry and apparel and all sorts of stuff. I don't think it exists anymore. But anyway, it wasn't good. I liked the work. It just didn't appeal to a broad audience. So I went back to the drawing board. I started doing some little small art fairs, like in basements of buildings. There was a building in Chicago called Architectural Artifacts that is no longer in business. The gentleman retired, but it was a really cool store. And down in the basement, they would hold shows for artists.
Okay.
You could also have weddings there. It was a lot of fun. If you've ever seen Windy City Rehab on HGTV,
I have.
Allison would often shop at that store to buy, to find old vintage pieces for her homes that she was remodeling. It was a really cool store. So I did a few smaller art fairs. I had a breakthrough probably 5-6 years ago. I met a really talented artist by the name of Aija Maedis. And she was a high-end gold jeweler, and she still is. She's still in business. And she sort of took me under her wing. There's a big show in Chicago at the Botanic Gardens that features high-end crafters from all over the country, and she happened to be one of them. And my teacher, Jim's best friend, Chris, was also in the show. And Chris and Jim were coming to our house for dinner one night, and I said, hey, why don't you guys come to dinner? We'll eat in the backyard. I'll cook. Don't worry. You don't have to do anything. Just come, plop down, enjoy yourselves. Well, Chris and Jim said, hey, can we bring our friend Aija? And I said, sure, more the merrier. So Aija came along. We just hit it off.
Wow.
And she kind of took me under her wing. And I, up to this point, only working in silver. I hadn't started working in gold yet. And she allowed me to come out to her New Jersey studio. She did some advanced stone setting classes with me, diamond setting, also working in gold. Gold's a little bit of a different animal than silver. And if you're not used to it and you've never worked, and you don't want to make mistakes because it's a very expensive mistake. So she took me under her wing, and then that's really where I had my breakthrough. What I learned from her, not that Jim wasn't a good teacher, but Jim is a different kind of metalsmith than what Aija was. And she really helped me get to the next level where I was able to gain the skills and the confidence to really start putting my name out there. And then that's when things really took off. Got the website going, was able to build out this space that I'm in now. This was just a raw space in our basement, and I was able to save enough money from doing art fairs to hire a contractor and build this out so that I'm not working in the winter in Chicago in 50 degrees down here in the basement. I actually have heat now.
Nice.
So I don't know. That's a long story. I tried to keep it short, but that's where I'm at now, and I've really come to the point where I feel like I've developed my style. People are recognizing my look, and I'm having fun while still running a business. You know, it's great that my hobby was able to turn into my business. 3 years ago, I was able to leave Starbucks and be an artist full time. I'm actually in my 4th year full time as supporting myself as an artist now, and it's the best decision I ever made. Working. If you have the opportunity to work for yourself, grab it, take it, run with it. I understand it's not for everybody. There's a lot of risk involved. Financial risk. You could fail. And it's all on you. There is no backup. There is no manager to call and say, hey, I screwed up. It's all on you. But that leap 4 years ago or 3.5 years ago that I took to work for myself, I never looked back. I'm so happy that I made that decision. And believe me, I loved my 19 years at Starbucks. It was a great company. They taught me a lot. They taught me a lot about managing, and I don't have a staff yet. I have a very, very, very part-time admin assistant, but I did manage a multi-million-dollar business with Starbucks. My store was a very high-volume store, and I had a staff of, at my last store, 25, but my highest volume store had a staff of 45.
Wow.
So I'm used to managing big teams. So I'm hoping that someday my jewelry business will progress to that point where I can start bringing on help. And it's getting close to that. I'm like right on the cusp of,
that's great.
I'm going to either work myself to death or I need to hire. or purposely pull back and just realize that this is the level I want to stay at, and that's it. So
yeah, I'm amazed to hear. I feel like your jewelry has such a distinct style. And I mean, I see a lot of jewelry, and your work, just the second we saw you, I think we met you like 2 years ago. It stood out to me as being so unique. So I'm so surprised to hear that you don't have any like formal schooling in what you do, and that you've all kind of been, self-taught, so to speak. So I think that's incredible, because your style, it stands out. It's very different than what a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, I kind of think about oh gosh, now I'm forgetting her name. The famous chef who wrote a book, Julia Child.
Oh, okay.
I have the Julia Child box set of DVDs, and in one of the episodes, I don't remember which one, and it might have even been in an interview, she says something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing,
Right.
because she didn't have proper schooling until she
Right.
went to Le Cordon Bleu, and she just woke up one day and said, I'm going to go to be a chef. And one of the things that she said that made her successful was she never claimed to be the best, but she claimed to be fearless. And I took that to heart, and that's what drives me every day, is I don't look at a challenge and get afraid by it. Meaning I don't draw out a design and go, oh my gosh, I can't make that. I can't do that. I purposely challenge myself with hard designs because I go into it with no fear. If you screw up, so what? You do it again. But being fearless, I think, is what helped catapult me in the industry without having any schooling, is because I was just willing to dive in and just do it.
Yeah. So where do you draw your design inspiration from? Because you really do have such a distinct look. So what inspires you? What's behind your designs?
So there's two concepts, I guess if you want to call them concepts, or goals that I always try to achieve in my jewelry designs. And not to say that that's not going to change, but right now, what drives my designs are contrast and texture.
Okay.
So those are two things I'm always trying to achieve. I also obviously some of my designs are more geared to one gender than the other, but I also try to make sure that in my designs that I have a little bit of something for everybody. A lot of my pieces can be unisex. They're androgynous. I have my cuffs. I have men who buy my cuffs. I have women who buy my cuffs. Same thing with my black and gold cigar bands. I have women who buy them. I have men who buy them. And that's also one of my mottos too, is that I don't want anyone to feel like they can't express themselves because they're stuck in a certain box, a certain gender box. Wear what you like. Wear what is exciting for you. Wear what you want to express yourself. And I don't really worry about gender when it comes to my jewelry designs. I feel like jewelry should be for everybody, not just for women. You shouldn't have to make just a women's line or just a men's line.
Do you have, out of all of the pieces you've made, do you have like a favorite piece of jewelry that you've made? Like of all time?
So my favorite piece of jewelry that I've made of all time, I'm not sure. And I know this is bad because our jewelry is like our children. We should never forget our children. But I mean, I've made a lot of pieces over the years.
Yeah.
The way I can answer this is my favorite piece to make to this day, and I've made a lot of them, but I love making cuffs still.
Okay.
There's something about the cuff, because it can be so many different things. You can dress them up, you can dress them down, you can give them a hard edge, you can give them a softer look, you can make them elegant, you can make them rough. And when it comes to my texture, I've done that so much too that when I'm doing that texture on my cuffs or on any piece, it's really almost mindless at this point. So as a jeweler, it's kind of nice to be able to sit down and not have to think. I can just crank my music and just texture away. But as far as a favorite piece, I'm going to have to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
You know, I often think about one of the very first pieces I ever made for Carol, who was the co-owner of Mindscape. I made a very, very, very modern version of a C for her to wear. But it was a very modern design. It was about this big, and it was on a cable, sterling silver cable, and it was very high polished, very reflective, and had like a lot of negative space in it. I oftentimes think about that piece, even to this day. And I made that 23 years ago, or 20 something odd years ago. And I remember her saying when I made it, and I gifted it to her because I made it for fun. And I really wanted her to have it, and she loved it and would wear it all the time. And she back then, my design stylist, she said it reminded her of something George Jensen would have sold in their store. So that if that gives you, it's kind of like a modern, sleek silver design. And I often, and my work has completely changed since then.
I was going to say, because that doesn't describe the work that you're doing now at all. So it's interesting.
But I often think about that piece, and Carol's moved to Michigan, so we don't stay in touch as much, and so I don't always know if she still has the piece, if she still wears it. But I often do remember that piece as kind of being one of my very first, when I felt successful as a designer, something I was really proud of.
Very cool. Interesting. All right. So we're getting a little peek of your studio that I can see behind you. So why don't you walk us through like what a day in your studio is like? And I know that will vary from day to day, but what does a day for you look like when you're at work?
Yeah, well, I'm only showing everybody this part because that's the part I picked up.
Okay. That's funny.
I am in the middle, as you know, Florida shows. A lot of us artists go down to Florida for the winter, and I was very ambitious. I scheduled, including the trunk show at Shapiro Gallery, I have 6 Florida shows in like 6 weeks.
Wow.
Which is very aggressive. And I thought after holiday, which was very busy, I thought, oh, no worries. I have like 6 weeks after holiday to get a huge collection together for all my 6 shows. Well, studios are like time warps. You sit down at your bench, and it could be 8 o'clock in the morning, and the next time you turn around, it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're like, where did the day go? Or you sit down and you think you're going to do something real quick, and 3 hours later, you're still sitting there. So needless to say, I did not get enough pieces made. So now I'm in this where I'm flying back and forth.
Okay.
So hence why the studio is very messy. Because I'm just in that mode where I'm just working, getting as many pieces made as fast as I can. And I came home last week to do the exact same thing. And in less than 72 hours, I was able to get 8 pieces made. So I just worked nonstop. So a day in the life for me is I usually get up about 6:30, which is take the dogs out.
What kind of dogs do you have?
I have 2 whippets.
Oh, okay.
Beacon and Loki.
All right.
Loki's black with white paws, and Beacon is that caramely brindle color that like whippets and greyhounds get.
Nice.
They're very, very sweet dogs. They're litter mates. And an interesting fact about them. So all your viewers, you can all send me birthday cards now. My birthday's September 7th.
Okay, noted.
And my dogs are also September 7th.
Wow. See, my dog has the same birthday as my mom, so lots of they got that.
Yeah. So there's 4 people in our family, me, Keith, Loki, and Beacon, and the 3 of us have a birthday on the same day.
Nice. Okay. September 7th. I'll remember that now.
Which makes my birthstone a sapphire, and I'm a Virgo.
Okay.
So I don't know if you read into science, but I think Virgos are known for being very, very driven. So I guess that's where a lot of my drive comes from.
Nice.
So I take the dogs out. Then it's feeding time. While they're eating, I'm brewing my coffee, making my toast. Come down to the studio when they're done. I click on the lights, and I will sit and watch a little news and drink my coffee, have my toast, and then it's right to work. I go. And I typically work, if I'm home and not on the road, I typically work 6 days a week. Okay. I don't have set days, but I do try to take at least one day off. But, as a business owner and as a designer, the brain is never off. It's still working. In fact, I keep a notepad and a pencil by my bedside, because if I get an idea, I've got to immediately draw it and make my notes. Otherwise, I'll keep thinking about it and I won't sleep. I literally stay up all night long. But if I get it on paper, then I can be like, okay, it's there. I'll remember it, and I can go back to sleep.
Okay. So I think just the last question I have that we've been asking everybody is the handmade craft movement lately has kind of been in this like evolution and it's really changing. So where do you see the movement going? Like what's your view of the handmade movement?
My view of the handmade movement is one, it has to continue because I mean it's not that machine made jewelry or machine made any good. It's not goods. It's not that they're not of high quality or interesting, but they tend to have a different feel, a different look, a very more commercial aesthetic. There's not as much variety. There's not as much texture, like, what I was talking about earlier. There's not as much individuality. And with handmade goods, you're going to get the individuality. I may make the same style cuff over and over and over, but no cuff is going to be exactly alike. No ring is going to be exactly alike. They're all going to have their own slight variations. And that's, to me, what makes handmade goods so great. Also, I don't really have to worry. And being a Virgo, I try to be very detail oriented. And I have to tell myself sometimes, stop. It's handmade.
Right.
It needs to look handmade. Stop being so fussy. There's a place for showcase jewelry. But there also has to be a place for handmade goods too. And I know there's a market for it still because, knock on wood, I usually have pretty good shows. So there is a customer base out there. One thing about the handmade movement I was worried about younger people. Like when I was in my 30s, it really felt like when the iPhone came out and was popular and electronics really started, everyone was buying electronics for birthdays and for Christmases and whatnot because it was new, it was inventive. I mean, the iPhone, it really revolutionized technology and how we operate our lives.
Yeah.
And it felt like that's what the younger generation, and when I say younger, I only mean like 10 years younger than me.
Right.
It felt like that's what they were spending their money on, and it felt like handmade was suffering. Now that we've gotten used to that technology, everyone has an iPhone. In fact, back in the day, people were stealing iPhones. I don't even know if people steal iPhones anymore. It seems like everyone has an iPhone. I'm sure they do, but
That's true. Yeah.
it doesn't seem as prevalent. But now that we've gotten used to that technology, it does seem to me like handmade is having a little bit more of a resurgence, more of a comeback. I am seeing the younger 30-somethings coming to the shows. They may not always buy, but I am starting to see the 40-year-olds. They're buying. They're now getting into this movement and buying handmade goods.
And I think just to kind of, piggyback off of that, we're seeing at the gallery, more younger starting to purchase too, which is encouraging for us. Cause the one thing that's important for, both of us is we need the younger to keep purchasing so that galleries continue to exist and that, jewelers can continue to make things to sell. But we're definitely seeing, especially with jewelry, more of the younger want something that's different and that you can't just go to any, big box store and buy. So I am optimistic about the future of the handcrafted movement, and I hope it, continues to grow.
Without handmade goods, life would be boring. It'd be very vanilla, and we need variety.
I agree.
It's not going to replace the big box store, but it's going to be in addition to those who want something a little bit different.
Agreed. Absolutely agree. All right, well, this has been awesome. I have learned a lot about you, and I think everyone listening has probably learned a lot as well. And for those of you listening, if you have more questions, Jacob is actually going to be with us in the gallery on March 19th and 20th, I believe. Yes, March 19th and 20th. He's going to be with us. You can come and meet him, see some more of his work. If you have any questions, bring him. He's a really fun guy to talk to. So even if you just want to come and have a chat, he'd be a fun person to talk with.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to being in the store.
All right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed getting to hear a little bit more about Jacob. I think my favorite part about him was how he wasn't afraid to admit that when he first started, it didn't quite work, and how he didn't give up and he kept evolving and adapting his style and design until he finally found what was the right fit for him. And ever since then, his career in the jewelry world has really taken off and he's thriving. So I just think it's cool, like, just to remind yourself, like, if it doesn't work at first, don't give up, like, keep trying. And that was my favorite takeaway from the interview.
And I think what he say, be fearless, or don't be afraid to fail, and be fearless is kind of what motivates him every day. And if you haven't seen his work, definitely come in next week on Wednesday and Thursday and see it. It's a really distinct, unique look. It's that a lot of oxidized sterling, and he'll actually, with his tools, he etches the different grains into, like, for example, his rings or cuffs. He'll etch into the metal the different texture and almost apply a layer of solid gold on top of it, almost like paint. So it's a really unique look. You get that black, you get that gold, and then and some diamonds as well. So it's like you just get really bright colors, vibrant colors, and it really pops really nicely. And it can definitely complement a lot of pieces that we have in the gallery.
Yeah, well, and he had talked about how he'll replicate designs, but how they're never identical, and a lot of that is because of the technique that he does. And when you see his work in person, you can almost see how he he doesn't actually drip the gold, but the way that the gold kind of spills into the grooves that he sets in his pieces, it really does make every piece so special and unique. So it's really cool work that I think you need to see in person to really appreciate. We have some beautiful photos of it, but seeing it in person, and I think actually meeting him to see the hands that make the piece, just makes it so much cooler.
Yeah, and it's yet another artist who just kind of started as a hobby, and it kind of took off, and they found their unique niche, and kind of has just grown from a hobby to a part-time job to now a full-time job. So Avery, if you want to get into art, I'm going to encourage you, just start and see what happens, and maybe your mom or pops will let you sell your work at the gallery. You never know. But it's one of those things that I think this is what, our fifth or sixth artist we've interviewed that didn't go to school for it. They didn't get, the professional training or the education. They learned on the job, and, as they've grown, their styles has evolved and have changed a little bit. And it's been cool to see.
Yep. Yeah. And then as a reminder, Jacob will be at the gallery on March 19th and 20th. As soon as we have exact times set for when he'll be here, we'll make sure we, publish those out, but definitely mark your calendars and come and meet him. He's a great guy, and I think you will all enjoy getting to learn more about him from him himself.
And after Jacob's there Wednesday, Thursday, and then that weekend, Michael Michaud from New York, who does all the jewelry the jewelry inspired by plants, will be in the gallery on for that weekend. He'll physically be in the gallery on that Saturday afternoon. But he'll have a nice selection of pieces there on through the weekend.
And I feel like they're a nice contrast to each other, because Jacob's still kind of, he's been doing it since, I think he said 2003, but it's really taken off the past few years for him. Whereas, Michael's been doing it forever, and he's really well established. So it's kind of like the newer, up and coming guy, and the one that's been doing it for a while. So it's kind of fun for them to bookend each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's always we try to keep the gallery fresh. We try to keep it different, and as we've said before, we also try to keep supporting the younger artists, and because without the younger artists, we can't keep evolving and growing. So again, I encourage everyone to come on down, check out the gallery. Next week should be fun with Jacob on Wednesday, Thursday, then Michael on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So some exciting things, and the gallery's looking great. Really unique glass has arrived. The blown glass animals that everyone seems to love. I know we have a blown glass kind of rubber duck looking one that's already sold, which I was sad to see, but happy to see it sell. But just really exciting times downtown. New restaurants popping up, new bars popping up. So definitely, if you haven't been down on Beach Drive lately, come on down, come check it out, and enjoy a day in St. Pete. The Grand Prairie is behind us, thankfully. I do know that this weekend is a Reggae Rise Up, but it still should be plenty of parking. It just adds another element, another exciting buzz in the area. Ave, what are you going to do this weekend? Anything exciting?
I don't know yet.
Okay. You have to get through the school week. Are you on spring break next week?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Do you have any spring break plans?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. Well, you'll enjoy a week off while your mom and I have to work. So maybe we'll see you on the podcast next week as well. All right. Well, if anyone's while you're downtown on Saturday, as you know, I have a t-shirt company as well. I will be at Williams Park. There's a big St. Patrick Festival going on Saturday from, I think, 11 to 7, and it's all sorts of activities, family friendly, lots of beer, whiskey, and all sorts of alcohol, some food trucks, and I know the Rowdies are doing something. There's a kids zone. There's all sorts of events and live music all throughout the day. So definitely come on downtown this weekend and enjoy a Saturday at the park, and then go over to the gallery and support us there as well. Anything else we want to touch base on or talk about?
No, I'm looking forward to this coming week. Lots going on. Lots of fun
Absolutely.
things.
Absolutely. Well, Avery, thank you for joining us. Jacob, thank you for popping on as well. And Elena, as always, thank you. And for those that are listening, make sure you like, subscribe, and tell your friends about us. And always pop over to the gallery website, SHAPIRO'Gallery.com, Shapiro's Gallery on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm starting to add some content to our social media, so you'll notice a little change, a little bit different style. So Elena has hers and I have mine. So we're going to compete to see who gets more likes. But so if you see anything you like, definitely heart it for us and share it. Definitely share it. That's the best way to get the gallery's name out there, and also to support all of our American artists that we love to support. So as always, shop small, shop local, and thank you so much for the support. Can't believe we're already 3 months into the year.
I know.
But next week we'll have a new guest, and you'll just have to tune in next week to find out who it is. Until next week, I am Matt. That is Avery, my sister Elena. We appreciate the support, and we'll talk next week. Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.